Hello everyone, so wonderful to be here. Welcome to day 3. And so today we're going to be talking about why we don't want to feel and getting to some of the root causes of that allows us to liberate ourselves, to think differently about our emotions, and giving ourselves permission to feel. And so in a way you might be wondering, well, why do I even want to feel? And that's a good question. And we spoke about it a little bit yesterday, is definitely related to the science, right? Is even if we don't want to feel, we are emotional beings. We're sentient beings, so we are feeling. We have a lot of feelings coming up. And so burnout actually ends up becoming one of our greatest teachers in that way, because any emotions, shame, guilt, despair, different emotions that we're typically not giving ourselves permission to feel, start to bubble up. And you might have even been noticing this within the pandemic, being home and locked down, being quiet with yourself, that all of these emotions that were previously trapped are coming out. So ultimately to heal from burnout, ultimately to create a burnout-free lifestyle, ultimately to live a mentally well life, it's about honoring all of your emotions that come up, honoring your human experience, allowing the emotions to show up. And then when they show up, it's an opportunity to release them. And we'll be speaking more about release techniques over the next day or so. But for now, we're going to really start to look at why we don't want to feel. And I just spoke a little bit about that, right? And a lot of it is related to we as humans, our nervous system, our reptilian brain is pain adverse. We don't want to feel pain. And a lot of emotions can be uncomfortable. So we as humans prefer naturally, instinctually, to prefer the ones that feel yummy and delightful and joyful and safe. But that's not all of our human experience. Another side of it, right, is the fear, is the feeling unsafe, is the feeling of disappointment, of the feeling of shame, the feeling of abandonment. All of these deep aspects of pain that actually register in your brain in the same areas that registers physical pain. So whether it's emotional pain or physical pain, the body and mind recognize it as pain. And now with physical pain, you might go to the doctor, get it figured out. You might need surgery. It might be something obvious like a broken arm, so you go and get it cast up to heal. But our emotions are less externally obvious. And so it can be easier in the short term to deny them, to hide them, to suppress them. And it makes total sense that we do that. And so I really want to offer the idea of self-compassion and self-kindness, certainly in all areas of healing. And with burnout and with whatever you're going through, is recognizing, okay, I'm having a human experience. And that includes not feeling great all the time. Living a burnout-free lifestyle, or living a life where you feel mentally healthy, does not mean that you're going to feel happy all the time. On the contrary, it means that your body and mind has the ability to flow with what life is bringing you. Flow with when life brings you something that triggers an old wound or an old trauma, that brings up hard emotions, that you're able to look at that emotion, you're able to experience that emotion and go, okay, whew, it's here, and I'm feeling it, and I'm human, and I'm not going to judge myself for feeling my emotions. I'm not going to feel weak for crying. That's a big one. And so speaking of that, let's delve into the activity a little bit and go from there, because what definitely triggered inside of me was, for a lot of men, crying in particular can feel very shameful or, feel like it's a weakness. But certainly for women too. I'm not suggesting that it's fully gendered, but I am suggesting / stating that an aspect of how we feel, I don't mean how we feel good or bad, I mean the ways that we allow ourselves to feel, is very much related to the habitual ways that we were given permission and allowed to feel when we were younger. And so those habits of how we feel, carry over into our adult lives. So also related to the science of burnout, as we were sharing the other day, is when the reptilian brain signals something new. Wait a minute, this is a new emotion? It'll extra get scared and freaked out because it has not been experienced in a while. And then it pushes, it's like, no, I don't want to feel that. But certain emotions that we feel often, the brain's like, okay, I can deal with that one. I can be with that one, right? And so again, speaking kind of just gendered, I will say, right? Anger might feel more comfortable and available to men. Some level of disappointment might be more common with other people. So we actually get chemically dependent on the way that we feel, because whatever that is, whatever those emotions are that we allow ourselves to feel, our brain, our reptilian brain, goes, okay, you're safe to feel those. Anything else, no. Anything else outside of that, it's not safe to feel. And so when we stay within this finite amount of feeling, we rob ourselves from the wide range of the human experience. Because what lies dormant, while you're also denying the harder emotions, on the other end of the spectrum, is bliss, joy, elation, deep, deep love, self-confidence in bigger ways than you ever knew. But in order for that to happen, all of the emotions need to be invited in. So let's look at the worksheet, as I was saying. So you've downloaded the worksheet, or maybe you've made a couple of notes about it. However you've done it, whether you downloaded it, printed it out, however you have this resource, please have that available now. Since this is recorded, you could always hit pause and go and get the worksheet and come on back. So it's the root relation worksheet. And I have it, it's a similar one to the one that I have in my book. It's exercise 20 on page 92 of Burn Bright. And it's called Emotion Identification plus Root Relations. So the idea here is actually based in science. And as I was stating, when we're young, we're really taught what is socially acceptable to feel. Because ultimately, as adults, one of the greatest taboos, social taboos, is feeling like the full range of your emotions. Yet when we were babies, when we were kids, say before like the age of 2, and maybe up to 3, 4, depending on your gender, depending on, variations of things, and we'll be exploring that in the exercise, is we were allowed to scream, we were allowed to yell, we were allowed to feel angry, we were allowed to feel sad, we were allowed to feel scared, we were allowed to express all of that. But then somewhere along the way, we were given overt and covert messaging that, nope, that one's not acceptable. Yep, you need to be quieter. Nope, you're sharing too much information. Yep, nope, that one, that one's also not okay. You need to be feeling this way in order to make mommy happy, as one example. And so once we can start to understand the early age roots of our emotional patterns now, of what our emotions that we allow ourselves to feel now, then that liberates us to feel more of our emotions. So, most likely, as an ambitious person, you've already started to look at the worksheet. So let's go through there's the list of emotions, and I also have lines for in the blank line section that allows you to fill in the blank if the emotion doesn't exist there, because this is really a partial list of emotions. So looking over the list, kind of grounding into your body. Let's actually do that first. Closing your eyes, or a soft gaze downward towards the table if that feels more comfortable. Hand on your heart if that feels comfortable to you. Just getting into your body a little bit. Giving yourself a little bit of gratitude. Thanking yourself for showing up for yourself. Really saying, yeah, I get to show up for myself here. I get to be part of this coaching group. I get to give myself permission to feel more, even if that sounds scary as hell right now. Yeah, and honoring any emotions and any fear that is coming up right now for you. And starting there, what emotions are coming up for you? You can look at the list to give you an idea. Sometimes it's challenging to put a word to an emotion that we're experiencing, and that's why I provide this list here for you. And if you want, feel free to share in the comments what emotions are coming up for you right now. Even the idea of talking about sharing more of your emotions or digging into some of the root causes of your emotions may be bringing up strong emotions. And remembering that that's important to honor that. It's important to notice it, and it's important to allow them to come up. Because otherwise, you start to feel it, and then you push it down, and then it just lives in your body as stuck stress, as unresolved emotions. So really honoring yourself and allowing any emotions that are coming up right now for you. And our breath, to give you a quick tool, thankfully our breath that is always with us and always present is the most beautiful tool, and actually the most useful tool, to be with our emotions in a way that one, they don't have to completely overwhelm us, and two, they can process through us and dissipate. It's through our breath that we create space around that physical sensation of our emotions. And then on the exhale, just allowing it to shift and move if it does. Not a forcing, not saying get the hell out of here, but I feel you, and I'm going to breathe with you. Yeah. So now shifting over, on the first question, which emotions were you more allowed to feel in your family? Spending a few moments looking at the list, and you can always spend more time doing this reflection after the video as well, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to supply you with the worksheet. Recalling your youth and saying, yeah, what were some stuff that I was not allowed to feel? So you could actually do it both ways. You could do, what were the most socially acceptable in my family? Which ones were definitely not accepted and allowed in my family? And if any memories or emotions are coming up for you, giving yourself a lot of self-compassion, jotting down any notes that you want. And so recognizing that society and our families, none of us were ever taught how to fully feel our wide range of emotions. So most of our parents were extremely well-intentioned as they taught us what emotions were acceptable and which ones were not. So giving yourself and your family a lot of compassion around this. And compassion for your family does not mean that you deny your own feelings. It's still important to recognize them. And sharing it on this worksheet for yourself gives you a chance to safely explore that. So what emotions were most allowed in your family? And then on the flip side, which ones definitely were not allowed? And then the next one, which emotions are most allowed in the workplace? And then perhaps the flip side, which ones are definitely poo-pooed on? And granted, there is a balance between professionalism and, and emotional expression. But even with that said, it's not about denying your feelings in the workplace. But noticing, which ones are allowed and which ones aren't, and how that may feel really stifling to your being. Number 3, which emotions do you allow yourself to openly feel in public? Whether it's with friends outside, whether it's walking down the street, whether it's interacting with the grocery store person. What do you allow yourself to feel in public? And then which emotions do you allow yourself to feel in private? And a side note to all this, what are some ways that you allow yourself to express it privately, publicly, at work? Which emotions do you feel are lying just under the surface that you're trying not to feel? Kind of that bubbling up and that constant pushing down. And part of that pushing down, that's part of the exhaustion of burnout. That's part of the I am spending so much time trying not to feel these feelings. And that creates a lot of panic. That creates a sense of feeling unsafe as well. So even though the reptilian brain is like, I don't want to feel those emotions, it also on some level feels it and feels very unsettled and unsafe. Remembering to breathe, being kind to yourself. And tomorrow we'll be covering some really helpful and important information and tools to help you as you start to allow yourself to feel these emotions. It's going to give you techniques of how to fully be with them so you can process and release them instead of stuffing them away. And then lastly here on the worksheet, which emotions do you want to feel but lie dormant underneath burnout, underneath suppression, underneath all the to-do list stuff that leaves you feeling despondent, joyless? What do you want to feel? And seeing if you can kind of even feel that in your body for a couple moments. Maybe joy. And if you can feel it, great. If you can't, that's fine too. Just noticing how your mood can shift as you give yourself permission to feel. And so I would love in the comments if you want to share any of the answers that you came up with or any of the insights of knowing this information here, right? Really gathering like, oh wow, yeah, this is what I'm allowed to feel. This is what I want to feel. This is some of the stuff that I really hide but is really inside of me that needs to come out. And noticing, kind of inquiring with yourself, how does this show up for you? How does this show up in the ways that you hide away aspects of yourself within your family, with your colleagues, out in public, perhaps even with yourself, what you hide from yourself in private? What feels too scary to feel? Yeah. And that fear is an important indication that that emotion is ready and it needs to be released. And we'll be speaking more about it over the next couple of days, but there can be this idea that if I let myself feel my emotions, it will just flood me and I will always be that emotion, that grief, that despair, that shame, that guilt. But here's the thing. Everything's temporary. Nothing's permanent, right? Like think about how you felt, say, yesterday. Do you feel the same exact way right now? Very unlikely. Because things are always in motion. Yes, there's habitual ways that we do give ourselves permission to feel, whether it's a conscious or unconscious level. But things are always shifting. There's an absolute human tendency to say, I want to hold on to only the good times. But they eventually leave too. And I want to push away the bad times, the painful times. And when we're in the painful times, we oftentimes forget that we've ever been anything else. But I want to remind you that no, you have been other emotional experiences in the past, and you will be other emotional experiences moving forward. So recognizing that no single emotion can take you over forever and ever and rule your life. Again, yes, we get into patterned ways of feeling, and then that becomes more of our norm. But as we give ourselves permission to feel, it more easily flows in and out. And even the ones where we feel super stuck, where it feels like, oh my God, I always feel angry or I always feel sad, perhaps even asking yourself, okay, when did I not feel angry? When did I not feel sad? And then the intensity of it changes as well. There can be an intense emotion. I don't know a single person that's in high-end anger all the time. There may be a bubbling, low-grade anger or cynicism that's happening, but even that flows and goes. And we have big feelings, whether we allow ourselves to feel them or not. And I suggest for your health and well-being to start really feeling them, giving yourself permission. So today, giving yourself permission, saying, okay, I'm giving myself permission. I might feel a little scared, but I'm learning how to be with my emotions. I'm allowing to go against social norms and feel my emotions. And breathing with it with self-compassion. And tomorrow, I promise you, we will be working with a very useful technique to help you be with and process the emotion